Right, it's 5 minutes past, so we're going to be kicking things off now. Thank you all for taking times out of your busy Saturdays, which I'm assuming you would be rather spending at the pub than listening to us talk. But it's very great to see such a great amount of comrades decide to join us at such short notice. Before we go ahead with everything today, just want to go over a few housekeeping things. We are currently the meeting is currently being recorded, and there is currently a transcript running as well. It is with the expectation that the video will be made public after this meeting, and that the transcript and the notes of this meeting will be most likely posted up as a blog post as well. So, hi everyone, my name's Finley. I'm a member of the executive committee of the Democratic Socialists of your party. Today we're going to be talking about the draft constitution that has been released as of yesterday. So there's a lot of stuff to get through. Due to the time constraints, we aren't really here to relitigate a lot of the previous quote unquote drama that has been happening throughout the entirety of the foundation process, but it's still pertinent context to remember as well. So quick brief, who are we? Why are we here today? So the Democratic Socialists are just a group of activists interested in building the minimum requirements for maximum democracy within your party. We really want a truly socialist and anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist unitary version of your party. This was originally started out as just a couple of people, like-minded people that wanted to intervene in the founding process to make it as democratic and as socialist as possible. And as of now, it's grown into a national grassroots campaign, pulling in hundreds of people across the country that are interested in this vision. Shortly after this campaign, there was a small informal network known as For a Party Republic that were very concerned with the constitutional principles of the party itself. Those constitutional principles are going to be elaborated further in our speech today. We operate through a variety of working groups on local organizing, on program, national strategy, communications, and constitutional development, which is fair to say, our bread and butter. And our purpose is clear. We want to win a socialist, democratic, and unitary foundation for your party, and to help build a political force capable of challenging and smashing capitalism and imperialism, building us a socialist future. The Party Republic, which is a socialist, democratic, and united working class party, will not be handed to us, and it must be built by us in our workplaces, in our streets, and in our communities. This is the remit of the Democratic Socialists of your party, and we're hoping that you find any of the contributions that we come up with today very helpful in orienting ourselves towards actual interventions within the party structures itself. So I'm just going to go through a brief run through of the agenda today, what's going to be covered, what's not going to be covered, and just some other bits and bobs. So after this brief introduction, we're going to pass over to our comrade Tina, who's going to do a critique of the actual draft documents that as they've been released. Part of this critique itself is going to then lead on to showing our campaigns for amendments, which our comrade Charlie will be doing. This will be including some of our concrete amendments to actually make sure that this party is as democratic and as socialist as possible. Then we're going to be moving on to practical interventions. We have structured this in a 3-tiered format, which is which options in the draft do we support, against, can we force votes on what or assemblies if even possible, and beyond, what is the long-term strategic orientation that we should be taking. Following these, that will be about 70 minutes time. We'll have a 5 minutes comfort break where everyone can go to the toilet, get a glass of water, maybe grab a pint if they're at the pub and they're listening to this. Then we're going to be moving on to contributions from the floor. This will be around a half-hour time period with one of our comrades will be moderating. This will be questions to relevant speakers that have been raising points tonight. And at the end, we'll just have a quick roundup of the key points of the meeting and any further steps and any further things that people desire. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over now to our comrade Tina, who's going to handle the first part of the substantial critique of this meeting. Thank you.
Hiya. Thanks for joining this call tonight. We should say from the outset, I think this is the first step. We've only just seen the documents last night, 7 p.m. on a Friday night. I mean, hello, that was not nice, was it? So some of us have spent quite a few hours looking through it and trying to digest what it all means and where we actually need to concentrate our fire on. I mean that in a friendly way. I have to say that right from the beginning, I think we want your parties to succeed. I suspect everybody here on this call wants your party to actually work and to become a party of the whole left that can change society. It's a chance of a lifetime, and certainly for me, having been around the left for many decades, this must work. It really must work. But I should say, trusting the leader is never a good attitude. I think what we should have a healthy culture where we can say we criticize things, but from a perspective of wanting it to become better, not because we want to wreck it, which we've been accused quite a lot recently, but because we actually want to make it fit for purpose. We don't want to split it either. I think it's a good culture that members ask questions, they challenge, they criticize, and they amend. I think that's what the kind of party we need for the kind of society we want to fight for. Us collectively running things. So I have to admit, I was preparing for what I thought was the worst case scenario, that there'd be an online portal, and you'd have to collect something like 1,000 signatories to make any amendment, to put an amendment forward. That's the rules in Momentum are. Unfortunately, my worst case scenario actually turns out to be would have been a nice scenario, because the online portal is not working. Understand that for technical reasons, not technical reasons, they want to wait until all the members from the Zara party, have migrated over. Who knows how long that's going to take? But, this also means the assemblies, the regional assemblies, are not supposed to vote on amendments. It's just facilitators taking note and somebody deciding somewhere to implement some amendments and not others. So who knows, is somebody going to go through tens, thousands of pages of notes and decides which ones are good, which ones are bad? That's problematic. I suspect they're probably not going to go through that many notes, to be honest. So my point is there's currently actually no way for us members to make sure that any amendments go through the conference. And that is, I think, a real problem, a real democratic deficit. And, something we have to look at when it comes to the regional assemblies, that they might be our only way, or the branches, that these might be our only way to actually put forward some proposals. So, we will, Democratic Socialists, which I support, I also support the Weekly Worker, Democratic Socialists wants to put forward a set of concrete amendments, which I think is the right thing to do. We're saying the draft constitution in particular is not really, as it is, a way to empower the membership. We want these amendments, though, from my perspective, at least, it's really important that we get the whole left behind as many of these amendments as possible. We need a united left campaign with all the groups on the left, and we can argue about that. I think the SWP, the Socialist Party, all of these groups, we should contact and try to get them to join a campaign for a set of joint amendments, joint demands, to actually have a bit of a chance of something going through. But we have a bit of time now with the online not working. We have a bit of time to think about what amendments we're pushing for and how we're getting others to support those. I'm not going to look at the political statement much, although it is important, obviously. Politics is why we're here, isn't it? We want to actually present an alternative to the system. I'm not impressed by the current political statement, I have to say. Take one sentence here. Billionaires and corporations are now in control of our country. Your party aims at its democratic and socialist transformation by redistributing that power and wealth to all. I think there's various problems in that very short couple of sentences. It's not individual billionaires who are the problem, and they're not the billionaires in our countries. It's international capitalism that is controlling all of us across the globe. And I don't think we just want redistribution of power and wealth. I think, as Sarah Sultana put it very nicely, we want the whole fucking lot. We want to own the means of production. We want to control them, not just nationalize them. We demand that the majority of people should run whole of society. Clearly, that is democracy. It also contains a couple of formulations. Again, I'm not going to concentrate too much on that. We'll probably have another meeting on that. I think we should actually, it says your party wants to build the broadest possible social coalition with the working class at its heart. I don't know if that's a reflection of the class composition of the Independence Alliance of MPs, but it is problematic. Of course, we want to work with other classes as and when. It would be daft if we just say, piss off petty bourgeoisie, as it's traditionally called, small capitalists, shop owners, etc. We want to win them over, yes, but I don't think we should be looking for an alliance. We shouldn't subordinate the huge working class, the 95% of society. We shouldn't subordinate ourselves to this relatively small class. If we're serious about being a socialist party, a left party, then we need to be clear that it's the working class that has the power to change society and transform it radically. It's not going to come from, the shopkeepers, the small capitalists. It's going to come from us, those who and I should say what I mean by working class is not just, the blue collar worker, etc. It's not even just those who have a job, who go to work. No, working class means everybody who is dependent on the wage fund, including students, housewives, the retired, the unemployed, stay-at-home mums. The vast majority of the population is working class. So we should build a working class party. And I think that cross-class idea goes through the whole constitution as well, I'm afraid. So looking now concretely at the constitution, and I've already talked quite a while, so I'm going to try and speed up. There are some options we're allowed to take, but only for what I think are mostly unimportant things. Do you want a hybrid party meeting? Dear God, of course, if we can, we should do it. But is that what we need the options on? I think there are far more important things in there that we should actually have some say over it, and it's going to be very difficult, as I said, because we haven't got a way to put forward amendments. So I think throughout the whole thing, there's a sort of a distrust of the members and the branches, with a very strong leadership, which is almost a carbon copy of the Labour Party structures. We should point that out. And we should be much clearer that this is a party where the members should be in charge. So there are a few changes we need to make. For example, it's a very serious issue is the whole question of double membership, which is actually worse in the draft constitution than I thought it would be. So you have the formulation: members may not hold membership in any other national political party, except if specified by the CEC, which is the leadership. Now, these are different to what they call provisional associate branches that are already registered with the Electoral Commission and who are going to affiliate to the party. So that's sort of the Arise in London. It's the party of Alan Gibbons in Liverpool. It's Majority. So these are going to affiliate to your party and submerge themselves then into it. That's, good, that's those kind of parties. But this, any other national political party, I think this is aimed at left-wing groups, SWP, Socialist Party, etc. You're not supposed to be a member of them. The next phrase is even more difficult and problematic. Members may not affiliate with or participate in organizations undermining party values. Now, call me skeptical, but this reminds me very much of what happened in the Labour Party when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party. And this kind of stuff was used to finger people. Oh, you liked a Facebook post by Labour Against the Witch Hunt. You did this. You wrote in the Socialist, and that's not party values, etc. You're out. So I think that could be very much misused by somebody, if somebody wants to get rid of people who are organized in other organizations on the left. Now, I think why is that a problem? I think your part, and this is quite disputed amongst many people. Why should the SWP be allowed to join this? They have their own organization. Let them have their own organization. I think we have a real chance here, a historic chance, to make your party the party of the whole left, the end of the sects, which I would very much welcome, bring them all in, so you have 1,500 members of the SWP in a party of 100,000. What influence are they gonna have? None. But we can probably, influence them and work with them and actually draw them away from the sect culture that they've been so, involved for so long. I think it would be good for your party. These are comrades who've been often, involved in struggles, campaigns for very, very long time. So we should bring them along. Have, though, and that's important, that's missing still, open factions, open platforms in your party. Let them have a socialist worker platform. There should be a communist platform, a Marxist platform. This is what, I'm still officially, I think, a member of the Linke in Germany. That's how they're operating. They have, you can get together with how many people you want, you build a political platform, you put forward your views, you can stand for elections as, the communist platform, etc. It's very open, it's very democratic. It's been tried to abolish, people try to abolish it, but that's failed because it's a very popular democratic thing. We should be open and honest about our politics. That explains then why somebody is talking shite, perhaps. They're a member of that platform. That explains it, It's a much better, more honest way to go about politics. So we will put forward an amendment to have the right to form factions. There's also a formulation in there which I find very troubling, which is members must respect the confidentiality of internal party matters. I think this is directed at people like Archie Woodrow, Max Shanley, who've been talking about stuff that's actually happening in your party. It's being kept away from the members. So Democratic Socialists and, Communists do not believe in secrecy. That's always used by those above to stop us knowing what's going on so we can't hold those above accountable. We're in favor of openness and transparency. There should be no confidentiality in internal party matters. It should all be out in front of the working class so they can follow what's going on. The Constitution is very controlling of branches, I think, very suspicious of branches. Elections have to take place supervised by the center. Ward organizations can only be set up if there's a certain threshold being met. The groups, the branches have to organize local assemblies, and this I find quite difficult. Actually, it sounds quite democratic, local assemblies, but these are actually, I think, this is where the cross-class issue comes in. So these assemblies, which are obviously not just party meetings, we have them open, anybody can attend, member, no member, you could be a member of Reform attending, you could be a member of the Tories attending these. They can initiate and even agree on local party policy is one of the suggestions. We're allowed to click agree, disagree on this one, which I think we should disagree with. They can also get involved, and that's the suggestion also, in the mandatory reselection of candidates for your party. So you can have people who are in other parties coming to these assemblies and deciding who we put forward. That doesn't strike me as a particularly good idea. I hope I'm not the only one. I mean, it's good to reach out to the community, but why can't we get the community to join your party? Surely it should be this way around. They should become members of our truly mass working class party, not subordinate our party to forces who, for some reason or other, probably not good reasons, don't want to join your party. So why should they set policy for your party? I think that's a really bad idea. There's a danger, assemblies. People hear assemblies and think that's a good idea. But please look at the details. This is not a good idea. Finances, there's an issue that there is no firm commitment for how branches should be financed. It says, all branches shall undertake workplace engagement and party organizing activities in the community, as well as regular canvassing, and shall be appropriately resourced to do so. Just those things. What if the branches want to do something else? Have a film club, have, help with the food bank, run whatever campaign that costs money. Are they not going to get money for that? Are we only going to get money for canvassing and workplace engagement? No, there's surely branches should be getting a set amount of money, 50% in our view, of the membership fees. and they should decide autonomously how they want to spend that money. They should not be, should not be told what to spend the money for. Coming to the leadership elections then quickly, I think that's problematic. There's a very strong leader who's elected via online OMOF. All the elections are in this proposal are via online OMOF. Now I should say OMOF, one member, one vote, is very good for local meetings, very much. Or if you use OMOF in a conference, everybody who's there, one member, one vote. Correct, yes, absolutely. If you do it online and everybody at home gets a vote, I think problems arise in terms of things becoming a beauty contest. So, if I want to stand for the leadership, Tina, nobody's heard my name. So always people who have the biggest names, who are the loudest, who are the most prominent, they will get on a leadership like this. So it's not really on ordinary members who have a chance on getting the leadership like that. It tends to be people with big names. Another problem is that only about 60% of the leadership will be elected by the members. The rest are 4 public office holders, including 2 MPs, and seats reserved for so-called organized sections, no more than 5, which means there's going to be a total of 28 people on the leadership. And also Scotland and Wales will have a representative, the leader, 16 directly elected people. So 28 28 people on the leadership, 16 of them directly elected by the members. I don't think that's good enough. I don't think there should be any automatic representation for special groups. This is exactly what happened in the Labour Party. It's a replication of its structures. All sorts of places reserved for this or that special interest group. And so the right goes away, sets up a special interest group and gets an automatic seat on the leadership. Has happened many, many times. We shouldn't have anything to do with that. Shouldn't be any public office holders who get automatic representation. They should all be elected and they should all be recallable as and when required. But there's no facility in there actually to recall national leaders. There's a facility to recall local office holders. The chair of a branch can be recalled if there's 40% in a meeting who 40% of the members locally demand it, then there will be a vote, etc. I think that threshold is way too high. 40% is a huge number that you need to get to recall somebody. That should be much lower and should be also organized by the branches and not from home, etc. We should have a democratic discussion if somebody's doing a good job, if an MP is doing a good job, a councillor or not. So these need to be democratized.
It's 2 minutes till the end.
Okay, cool. Okay, I only have a couple more questions. Mandatory reselection is in the formulations, but it is very, very vague. So it says, for example, incumbent publicly elected party members shall be subject to cyclical primary contests. Primary contests, remember that phrase, to be held by the local party before the relevant scheduled public election. So not mandatory reselection in the branch. It sounds very much like the US primaries. And it sounds like this might actually happen in the assemblies rather than in the party. So your party MP could be, it's the assembly, the local assembly that decides which your party candidate we're putting forward in elections. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. As I said, these people, have assemblies, of course, come along. They shouldn't decide our policies. They shouldn't decide who our representatives. It should be asked for the branches, surely. So we don't want US primaries. We want democracy, accountability in the branches with the members. That should be the hub of your party, really. We've had a bit of a discussion in terms of a couple of other points that I don't like, but others in the Democratic Socialists are less worried about. And that's, for example, the General Secretary in this draft constitution, who might or might not be called Kerry Murphy. Way too powerful, appointed, superpowers, appoints all the staff in all the regions, and she's got massive amounts of power. I think that position should always be elected. That should not be an appointed position. I think Max disagrees. He wants to have a rolling monthly contract for somebody like that. maybe that's the way around it. I think it's much better to have them elected by the committee, the leadership committee, and then that means if they're doing a shit job, they can get rid of really quickly. Also, I think the constitution should be able to be changed with a simple majority, not a 2/3 majority. Comrades disagree with that. I think it's a very basic principles that a simple majority should say what's what, and not,
If you could wrap up now, comrade, that'd be great.
That's my end. To be a really proper members-led organization, we really have to have the members in charge, not the leaders, and not have rules that actually prevent us from exercising control of the leadership.
Thank you, Tina. That was a very fantastic contribution, outlining a lot of the principal issues that many people may be having with the draft constitution itself. For now, we're going to be handing over to our comrade Charlie, who's going to be talking about some of the alternative proposals and some of our concrete amendments that we can do to address this democratic deficit that exists.
Yeah, so what I'll start with is a bit of context about the constitution that we have ourselves and the demands that we had going into the campaign, which came from our vision for maximum democracy. So the document you can see up here, we had 10 headlines for a specific vision for maximum democracy. And if anyone wants to, you can also see the full draft constitution that we have been working on. It's not completely finished yet. If you have any questions or anything you want to add to the draft, people are very welcome to. We've been sort of doing it as volunteers in our own time through our constitution working group. But I think it's quite clear that through that process, we've discovered that the constitution is a difficult document to write, but it can be done with people who are in a way that is democratic and comes from the grassroots. I think the document, the drafts and the questions that we've got are much more limited than the constitution that we've been putting forward, and rehash a lot of the labourist documents that we are used to. So the constitution that we want to see is one that we're calling our vision for maximum democracy. So we want to focus on working class self-emancipation. So the party's primary purpose is to be the political vehicle for the working class in all its diversity. We aim to end the tyranny and domination of capital and believe that the working class must be the agent of its own liberation, not a passive beneficiary of others' actions. So this means that the party is of and for the working class. I think Tina covered what that means in a practical context with the critiques of the programme, the political statement that's come forward from your party. And once again, we want an explicitly multi-tendency, big tent socialist unity. We want we seek to unite the wide spectrum of the left, and that means that that difference in left visions for the party, right the way from the left wing of social democracy, right the way through to revolutionary socialists, should be able to find their political home within the party as structured. The party should be grassroots led, bottom up, and membership funded structures. So we want to make sure that the party organises itself with authority flowing up from the ground rather than being bestowed upon the membership from the top. This means party branches being properly funded. We're looking at, I'll talk about in our specific amendments, but looking at 50% of the membership fee going directly to a local branch to ensure that local parties have the power to take the lead, organising in their communities and in their areas and build connections, not simply for elections, but to win across time periods, and not just win or lose an election, but be able to build working class power outside the electoral system. Member sovereignty through a Supreme Conference. The National Conference should be the highest decision-making body in the party. This means that the decisions made by the conference can only be changed by another conference. This means that the delegates chosen from branches are the ones making the decisions and have authority to drive the direction of the party. We want to have robust protections for internal dissent and factions. So our constitution draft guarantees members' rights to form open factions and to publicly express views contrary to party policy. Members should have the right to freedom of speech, expression, association, and dissent, and can organise to change the decisions they disagree with, provided that they respect the democratic legitimacy of decisions that have been made already while they're in force. We believe it's important that Scotland and Wales have the right to organise nationally, whilst recognising and appreciating the unique historical and cultural and political context of Scotland and Wales. The local parties should be able to decide what the Scotland and Wales sections of the party look like. It shouldn't be decided before any of those parties meet up and decide, and the structures should flow up again from the bottom, with the members in Scotland and Wales deciding exactly how that's done. We want to make sure there's strict accountability and leadership renewal. So things like that have been covered by the party that we want to see enshrined in a stronger way include mandatory reselection, the People's Whip, which includes the Socialist and Office Committee, which is to ensure that anyone who's elected from the party is held to the absolute highest standards. I think there's a worry that the current draft of the Constitution has more rules for members than it does elected officials. We also want to see the leadership refreshed regularly to make sure that we don't become entrenched in certain ways of operating, and encourage the leadership to be spread across the entire party and its diversity. We want to be led by membership with codified diversity. So this means that our vision for our constitution has national co-chairs elected by conference, a national political committee, which is composed of individual at-large members, also elected by conference under a delegated system. For conference to be properly sovereign, conference needs to be the body that's electing the officials. Otherwise, there's a dual mandate. One comes from the membership through sort of online elections, and the other one from the conference. And it's unclear exactly which organisation, which bodies you need to be intervening in to have have policy changed and have policy sort of enforced as well. So we believe that MPs should have no reserved seats, as has been covered, and probably 16 or so at-large NPC members, and also a guaranteed space for things like the youth section, which again the Constitution's currently that's been suggested to us has a definition of youth at 16, when other political parties in the UK have got membership, or at least associate membership, from 14 upwards, which I think is probably important when we come to votes at 16, which is happening next election. And we have a commitment to proportional democratic elections. So all elections in our constitution are operated by the single transferable vote system under the droop quota, which is commonly known as the Scottish STV system. This method ensures it's not winner takes all in elections, but the democratic will of the membership is spread across leadership. The delegate system is based on one member, one vote, but one member, one vote is defined by us as equal rights for members to participate in democratic deliberations and decision making at the local bodies, at the local branches. Whilst votes for leadership are cast by delegates, these delegates are subject to accountability and transparency to the membership in their branches, and we ensure that votes at conference have to be recorded publicly to make sure that the delegates can be held accountable properly to their local branches. I also want to make sure we've got a democratic disciplinary and accountability procedures, that we want to make sure that the people who are accused of misconduct or accused of breaking any rules within the party have their case considered by their own peers, and regular members being formed of a body composed of regular members who will oversee disciplinary cases, so we can stop the issues, or at least try to reduce the issues that we've seen in the Labour Party over recent years of bureaucratic mechanisms to exclude people from membership when they otherwise couldn't find a reason to win a vote properly. So that leads on to the sort of the goals of our specific amendments, which obviously we've had a very short amount of time to look through the documents. They came out less than 24 hours ago. But we have drafted some key amendments, which we'll send out as well in a proper document that we can people can take to their assemblies. The first assembly is tomorrow, which is ridiculous for proper scrutiny and for proper oversight from the membership. So the people of Norwich have my greatest sympathies. The goal of our amendments are to put forward a sort of a very positive vision for the party. So we want to empower the branches. We want to that means making sure that so we add that the branches should receive statutory funding directly from national membership fees at least at a rate of around 50%, and branches probably shouldn't follow electoral constituency boundaries. They're not entirely rational units. Some people the identification that people have with their own constituency doesn't make a lot of rational sense in some instances. Branches should be empowered to design and decide their own scope. We want to have a party for the whole left. So members may not currently it says members may not hold membership with any other national political party, except if specified by the Central Executive Committee. We feel that a whitelist is an effective ban. If you have to apply to have your party, your organisation, your party recognised by the Central Executive Committee, then you're putting that's not a memberless party. That's allowing people to have oversight of things that I think is largely probably not going to happen. So we want to make sure that the entire left can be represented in the party, and that means allowing members to form and organise open factions, which is currently not in the Constitution. So something we want to add, be they temporary or permanent, and we want to make sure that members can. There's no dual party requirements or dual membership requirements beyond do what you like. We want to add. We want to make sure there's no censorship and no secrecy. Members currently must accordingly respect the confidentiality of internal party matters. This is a stifling of members' free speech. We would like to see that all CEC, Central Executive Committee, and other meetings are open to members to view and watch, unless they are considered for sensitive matters, and ensure that local committees are able to, and members are able to criticise publicly, but once again, as long as they're operating within the democratic bounds of the party. We want to see a collective leadership. The current we want to replace the Central Executive Committee with a body that more accurately reflects the membership, without guaranteed places for MPs and councillors. We want to see members to be elected at the National Conference through a single transferable vote for 1-year terms. We want to remove the position of leader and instead have co-chairs elected nationally through the single transferable vote, who should be the primary spokespeople for the party. But ultimately, we want to see a collective leadership model where the leadership of the party are able to operate and change to the roles that suit them. We want a fair disciplinary process. We want to make sure that, as outlined in the previous slide, that our disciplinary process is sort of coherent to members, isn't arbitrary, which we've seen in a lot of parties and that isn't actually clarified properly in this constitution and standing orders currently. We'd like to see a People's Whip, which is a socialist office committee that is able to, which is formed of democratically selected representatives from relevant branches and sections to oversee the actions of their elected officials. We want to see the members having proper control over the people who are supposed to be representing them, and that means in between elections as well as at the ballot box. And the party has to be able to do that in order for its agenda to be represented at whichever spaces the party is represented in. We have a full document that will, with the exact wording of some of these changes that we're looking to see. we will send it out to attendees of this meeting afterwards as well. That's it for me for now, I believe, and I'll pass over to Finn.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Charlie. I hope that's given people a good understanding of what concrete proposals we can actually do to address some of the democratic deficit that is already blatantly obvious within the draft documents that have been released from your party central. What we're going to be pivoting to now is talking about strategy. What can we do? So we've got these things that we want to do, but how can we actually implement them in the process? So with this, we've got this split between 3 different comrades. So with the first section, which is the within section, I will pass this over to Graham first.
Hiya, Graham from the Programme and Strategy Working Group. So as our comrades have already talked about, Democratic Socialists, the goal is the creation of a genuinely democratic, genuinely socialist party, one that is a vehicle for working class struggle and emancipation. It's not simply enough that it's a vaguely left-wing party. We are actually very clear on what we're aiming for. But that's what we're getting involved in your party on that basis. But given the problems that we've probably by now all seen from the top or centre, we don't really have any confidence in the process if it were left to its own devices. There's been a lack of accountability, there's been secrecy, there's been unanswered questions about democratic input. Things have been delayed. And so that's kind of where we're starting from. This desire, the genuine desire to get involved and to help create this party, but to realize that we have to do it from below. We are not confident, or we should say it is not enough, as many people who have been responding to us, critiquing us, it's not enough to just wait and see. That kind of complacency is just a disaster waiting to happen. We need the membership to be standing up, organising ourselves, putting pressure on the centre to take it in that more democratic socialist direction. So we're not here to uncritically support Corbyn or Zara or the founding process and simply wade through whatever they suggest. But at the same time, we're not just here as wreckers either. We're not here to attack the process from the outside. We're here to get involved. And this is what we mean by within. We are here to get very much involved in the process and to try and bring it into the right sort of direction that we see that the party should be going in. But that also means emphasising the parts of the process which are actually working. As we've already seen from one of our comrades who went over the vision for maximum democracy. So we support parts of what we've seen so far, where the conference is made sovereign and is the highest governing body. That's point 4 in our vision for maximum democracy, and there are elements of that in the Constitution so far which make that possible. We support any mechanisms, well, actually, let's be more specific about this in a minute, but we support mechanisms which provide the means for member participation. It may just be that we want to take some of them further. We want to tweak them here or there. That's point 8 in our vision. We support national self-determination, the Scottish and Welsh members, which again, there is some provision for in what we've seen so far. And we like to be an orientation towards grassroots community organising and social movements. What is important, however, are the details, but the details are not just nitpicking. It'd be easy to think, oh, well, you know, we're just wrangling over this bit and that bit. But no, the details can mean the difference between one policy being something that expands democracy and it being one that is used a weapon against it. So the details are very important. Working with the process doesn't mean just accepting everything. It means acting in good faith that we generally want the best. And so we're here to also encourage you and everyone else to get actively involved in the founding process. Get involved in your local branches, get involved in the assemblies, your local meetings, put yourself forward as assembly facilitators. Bring these arguments and push for them, but do so in a constructive and comradely way. We need to be winning hearts and minds because we all want this to be a success. No one is trying to dominate a process. We just really want it to work. So constructive interaction, comradely debate and disagreement, applying pressure on the leadership. Because if the party genuinely wants democracy at its core, not just now, but throughout its lifetime, which it has said time and time again, then healthy dispute has to become part of the culture. This isn't just about the founding process, it's about the party as a whole. If we don't have a culture of healthy comradely disagreement, then we will not have democracy. We will only have the veneer of democracy. So political struggle, we have to remember, also happens not just outside and between organizations, but it can happen within them as well. That is not destructive, that is actually productive. That is a part of the democracy and the democratic organization we want to make. If we fail to engage in that struggle, we will not see the party we want to see.
Thank you, Graham. Right, so now we're going to be passing over to our next comrade. This will be Max, who'll be talking about how can we engage within the regional assemblies and other practical steps that we can do against the current.
Hello everyone, it's fantastic to see so many people here tonight, especially at such short notice. So the question put forth here is, how do we engage democratically in an undemocratic process led by anti-democratic forces? Now, as Graham covered earlier very quickly, the Democratic Socialists are a faction. We don't try to hide that. We're an open faction. Everything that we do in the open. But we aim to be a constructive faction. We're not here to wreck or anything like that, but we do intend to stir up divine discontent with all that is wrong. And so our approach to the assemblies is one of being in and against them in a way. In them in the sense that we encourage people to attend the assemblies, we encourage people to participate in the assemblies, we encourage people to put themselves forward as facilitators for assemblies. But we are against the mode of deliberation of these assemblies. We're told that they're purely consultative, no votes will be heard. Not only will no votes be heard, any amendments put forward are just to be noted down, and then someone mysterious at the party's centre or top, who none of us know who that is, by the way, are then going to collate all of these, and these are then going to be, who knows? No one knows what's going to happen. The entire process is mystified, obfuscated, and rather than representing the mass participation that all members were promised when the party was originally launched, what these assemblies actually represent is mass disempowerment. So we fully intend, as I said, to participate constructively in these assemblies, but we are also going to be proposing motions for supporters to take to these assemblies to try to force votes on matters that have serious weight in deciding the future of our party. That, in many cases, also entails critiquing the very process itself. The amount of time that has been allotted for member participation in this process is quite frankly pathetic. It's a lie that this is what democracy looks like. Anyone looking at it from the outside or from within can see that quite clearly. So things that we may mention in the motions, that we are a democratic organisation. We're currently drafting our motions that we might be putting forward. They will then be discussed with our activists, and then we will make them publicly available. But one of the things we are considering putting forward is that this process is now delayed, possibly until March, to give members time to properly discuss and to organise themselves in a variety of different ways, that the assemblies be delayed for a period whilst a proper process is set up for constructive member engagement and participation. One of the things we're also considering proposing is that this conference be rather than being selected by sortition of people being elected randomly, we would have a combination of members elected by the various proto branches that have been self-organised around the country. But we recognise that due to lack of access of data for these proto branches, they're not entirely representative of the membership. So what we propose is that members organise themselves into party platforms in the run-up to the conference, and representing the wide range of opinion that exists throughout the party, that they put forward essentially party lists. If you not know what that means a slate essentially, and that this be subject to a vote of all party members, an online ballot conducted by single transferable vote under the group quota, that's Scottish STV, and so as to ensure that the widest range of opinion within the party is represented on the conference floor. So that's our plan. We want to engage constructively, but at the same time, we recognise that those that have decided this process are intent on us not being able, as members, not being able to engage constructively in this process. It's purely consultative. It's basically a survey. They might as well have hired students to stand in shopping centres with clipboards, asking people questions as they pass by, like all the various chuggers we see trying to get money out of people already struggling. And then they could have given these over to Les Dennis, and he could have performed a special edition of Family Fortunes for your party. That's basically what the entire conference process is. That's what the entire founding process is. And it's designed this way because it's designed to ensure that a small minority of self-selected people who currently exist at the top of our party and are making decisions that affect thousands of people in the party, and look, let's face it, millions of people outside of it, ultimately, completely unaccountably. We don't know who they are because they won't publicly say so. And it's very clear that they're doing all of this so that they have a predetermined outcome. And the predetermined outcome is, as Tina said, Labour Party Mark II, but with them in full command by any means necessary, whether that be bureaucratic, through obfuscation, whatever. This is the way this process is being put forward is ultimately one that seeks to undermine mass participation rather than encourage it. And so it's up to members to demand that democracy is what was always promised of us, that democracy is when the governed govern themselves. And that means that the membership of the ruling class of their own party, not a shadowy elite who we don't know. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Max, especially with the colourful metaphors and allegories that help to underscore your point even further. Wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't have it any other way. Just going to now pass over to the last contribution to the section would be Charlie. Thank you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Sorry, it's me again. We were supposed to have other speakers, but we've got some illness in the ranks. Yeah, I think it's worth contextualizing that whatever we're doing, whether it's working within the process, working against the process, but also we also must be thinking beyond the processes that are given to us as well. I think it's there's actually a few people on this call as well who last week we have tried to build a Jamie is one of the other ones. Last week we tried to bring together some of the other groups and factions and caucuses and tendencies that have been set up around your party. We put forward a sort of minimal points of unity where we go and recognizing that whilst we disagree on some things, what is essential for us is that there is a democratic party that we can, in the short term and in the long term, shape and bend being towards member-led socialist in its character, we must continue to work beyond the official processes. We must continue to do the things like building power outside of the party as well. Those who are concerned with a democratic and socialist party should be doing what places like Bristol, Sheffield, Manchester are doing, and either running events with the Democratic Socialist banner or with other banners to bring together the Democratic and Socialist left to discuss ideas, to develop leaders, to act and behave in the sort of party that we want to see. It doesn't have to be given to us. We can do it without waiting for that. But when in doing so, we're able to take those ideas to the party, to those official structures. So yeah, we must engage fully in the founding process, and that includes the regional assemblies, and that includes the sortition conference. And we will use those structures to win support for a clear socialist programme, a democratic culture, and strong organisational foundations. But that's not the be all and end all. We need to be building this party not for the sake of itself, but for the sake of the class. So I'll probably end it there. I think that's probably a more nebulous idea, but we just need to be sure that we are cognizant of those sorts of things and what the goal is. The goal isn't to win elections, but to win socialism. And that is done through developing leaders on the ground beyond the party and using the party to that end. And in order to do that, we need to be struggling across all those sides.
Thank you, Charlie. We're running slightly ahead of schedule, but that's all good on our end. So we're going to have a quick 10-minute break so everyone can freshen themselves up, go to the toilet, have a drink of water, message their friends and tell them to come join this amazing Democratic Socialist of your party meeting. Maybe you should do that. That's a good idea. I don't know. I wonder who came up with that one. But yes, so we'll be back in 10 minutes time. All good. Lovely stuff. Right, it's 10 past now. So what we have tabled in now is a half hour of floor contributions, whether that's questions or comment that you want to make regarding any of the material that you've seen thus far today. We're going to be doing it in a format where we have 3 contributions, so one after another, and then each of if there's a question or a comment that could be responded to by a particular member, that would be ideal, because then we can just work through them in succession. So I'm going to sort this up on my end. So if you have any specific comments, if any specific questions or queries, feel free to raise your hand and we can get to you. So I'll make note of the first 3.
And if we can just say we're going to be trying to keep the contributions to 2 minutes if possible, and we'll give you a shout when you're coming up to the end of your time.
So one moment, I'm just going to change some of the settings. Right. Thank you. Right. Graham, if you want to moderate, I'll just take notes on one of this as well.
Right. Would you actually be able to take control of letting people know, and I'll just come in with the
Yes. So
yeah.
On my screen, the first comment is from Anwarul. If you want to go first, should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for organising this meeting. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of agree with the kind of issue about MPs and elected individuals in the seats of power. If this party is going to be a proper member-led party, there needs to be proper checks and balances. And MPs in particular have way too much power already. I don't think they should be in the driving seat of the party. There should be separate, you can have a parliamentary leader. There shouldn't be any problem with that whatsoever. But the party should be run by members and not elected officials. And it feels to me that there isn't. It's not because I have a particular problem with any one individual. I just think actually you need to have checks and balances, and the proper checks and balances should come from the members, holding any elected official to account. They are there to serve the party, not run the party. I think that's, for me, really, really important. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that to Fraser next.
Hi, comrades. I'm Fraser. I'm working in O4, organising Popular Power on our position on the founding docs. Very keen to collaborate with DemSocs. There's one point I wanted to make off the bat about the importance of a delegate conference. If we're going to ensure, like everyone's saying, that power and authority flows from local branches up, we need to be really clear that we need the conference to be constituted by local elected delegates. And in the case where there are affiliate delegates, that those delegates from affiliates are elected at as local a level as possible. I think that's a really, really important point to prioritise in the interventions that we're making. Also, in terms of the organising strategy, I think it's important for us to argue that the community organising units, although I think it's a bit confused as to what exactly they are, I think it's important that they are formed and driven at a local level. And that assemblies, as was talked about, are subordinated to the local parties, and it's at the discretion of the local parties how and when to use those assemblies and what powers to grant to them. And then also in the organising strategy document, there is a point where it talks about the organising strategy of your party as basically being something that is decided by the leadership, by the CEC and the leadership. And I think it's really important that we ensure that the organising strategy is something that's decided deliberatively and collectively, democratically by members, by the conference. So I just wanted to add those points to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to finally have a face for organising for Popular Power as well. I couldn't make it to the World Transform this weekend, so it's good to see you comrades engaging as well. Next on my screen is Chris Strafford.
Thanks, Comrade Chair, and thanks for organising this meeting. I'll be very brief. I mean, I guess there's two big priorities. First one on the Constitution, which is no bans, no censorship, and uniting the left. You know, we should have all communist and revolutionary organisations openly and freely able to organise within the New Left Party. You know, Tina's already made the point that these organisations are full of, the best class fighters and really intelligent people, but regardless of what organisation they found themselves in, we're all, coming together would be, be greater than the sum of our parts, and we'd be able to make a much stronger impact in the political life in Britain and what have you. On the politics side, on the statement, I mean, I think comrades have already said some of the things that I would agree with, the need for working class power, to transform society from top to bottom, to run society for the needs and wants for all, that we democratically plan all levels of the economy, that we have real freedom from exploitation, drudgery of work, but also in there that we should throw in there that we should have disloyalty to the British state and disloyalty to the capitalist class, its institutions, the House of Lords, the monarchy, state secrets, alliances. We should be opposed to its wars as well. That includes being opposed to its support for wars in Ukraine and its support for the slaughter in Palestine. Needs to be absolutely clear on those points, and fundamentally we need to name names, name the enemy. It's not the billionaires, it's capitalism. The future is not just nationalising this or that or making a better welfare state. The future that we really want is communism, and that's what we should be fighting for in terms of any amendments we put forward to the political statement. Thank you,
20
Chair.
seconds, comrade. Oh.
Thank you for the contribution for underlying the necessity of actually being outwardly communist and socialist. So prior to us going to the next contributions from the floor, we're going to pass it over to some of our comrades from the DemSocs to see if there's any responses. I can see Max is first.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so look, we fully agree with the comrade who spoke earlier about the need for members of parliament to be accountable to and subordinate to the party's political agenda and programme. That's one of the reasons why we're proposing socialists in office committees, so that between elections, members of parliament can be held to account, that we don't just flung them into parliament or, in the case of councillors, into a council chamber. We actually instill a kind of process of co-governance between party members and elected officials elected under our name. And the reason for this is polling consistently shows that people vote for parties, they don't vote for individuals. And so the party would ultimately get blamed for the mistakes of individual politicians. And so it's up to the party to make sure that mistakes aren't made. And if mistakes are made, that we're open and honest about those mistakes and that we don't try and bury it and pretend that, you know, these things don't happen. The second thing is something someone has said in the comments, asking me whether I personally have done a 180 on the question of sortition. I just want to clarify this. About, well, probably 6 weeks ago, I put an article out where I argued for something called Sortition Plus. The reason I argued for Sortition Plus was that at the time, I was informed that, you know, the people at the top were going to go for sortition. I didn't think this was good enough. I also recognised that they were never going to accept delegates from the numerous proto branches that have been set up around the country. So I tried to augment the sortition process by allowing fractional observers with speaking rights who would have been elected by all party members to attend, to ensure the widest range of opinion is represented as possible. On the final thing, I just want to stress something that I think Charlie didn't go over. I think it was because he was rushing through to try to get everything out in the time limit, and that's that we are fully behind the party standing in elections. We want to make that abundantly clear. But because they're important to show our popular support and to advance our agenda in all legislative chambers. But we don't want the party to be defined solely by those elections. And just one final thing, I know I'm probably about to get booted, but the importance of party democracy is because unless we have a democratic party, we never stand a chance of democratizing democratizing society. If you don't democratize the party, you can't democratize the state. If you don't democratize the state, you can't democratize the economy. And if you can't democratize the economy, well, I hate to break it to you all, but you can't have socialism. So questions of party democracy are actually paramount to our construction and our vision for a socialist world. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. I saw Tina put her hand up as well prior to our other comrades, so I will pass it over to Tina first, and then we can go back to contributions from the floor. Tina, I think you're muted.
Oh my God, it's my first time on Zoom. You know, it's going to pick up on something. Delegate versus sortition is important, and something that I disagreed with Max about. I think it was wrong to try and, you know, make this work, make their conference work the way they were proposing it. I think we should always argue for delegates, which is the most democratic way to go about it. You know, that branches actually can discuss, and builds branches, it builds vibrancy. We absolutely have to oppose sortition. It's in the draft constitution as an option, so you can click, you know, do you want delegates voting for do you want branches voting for delegates, or do you want sortition? I think Democrats absolutely have to make sure that we put, you know, a voting guide together where we say definitely delegate conference. But that ship has sailed now for the launch conference. I don't think it's much point trying to overturn that now. There's no way to do it. You know, we can go to launch conference and say this should be democratic, this should have been done with delegates, but that ship has sailed. But we have to make sure is that in the future this does not become enshrined, because it does really atomize people and doesn't build vibrant branches. And I just, one thing that people said in the chat in terms of amendments, I was wrong that, you know, there will be a way to put forward amendments at the conference, but that's the point, isn't it? Unless you've been chosen by lottery, all of us now, we have no way currently of putting forward anything to conference. We have no way of going to our branches. Well, we could get our branches to vote on it. We could get our branches. We could get the regional assemblies perhaps to vote for something. But, you know, that's more like a publicity thing, isn't it? It's not gonna, that does not guarantee it will actually go to conference. And that is the problem, that we don't have any input into the conference at the moment. And I find that deeply problematic.
Thank you, Tina. So back to the floor now. I can see Alan's been waiting patiently, so I'll pass it over to Alan Story now. You might be muted still.
A lot of muting. Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, all good now. Lovely stuff.
My name's Alan Story. I live in Norwich. I'm not born in Norwich. I'm a Canadian. Donald Trump's not my president. And I've lived here 30 years in this country. I just want to tell you a couple of things. Welcome the people from outside who are coming tomorrow, people from Cambridge around. Just tell you a little bit about this local situation, which is somewhat different than some branches. This is a very, very weak branch here in Norwich. It's completely controlled by the SWP and some ex-Momentumites. There was a vote, I should tell you, at midweek on a WhatsApp group, 16-2 against not having this postponing this conference. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens tomorrow. I don't really know how many people are coming because there's a whole problem that the data is so centralized. There might be several thousand members in Norfolk who are supporters of your party, but there's only like 300 in the Facebook group because there's no way to reach out to these people. So it's a classic example. We only got the documents last night. The documents are terrible. You can't even print them out. I spent most of the day trying to reformat the thing. I'll just make a couple of points. I'm big for local branches, etc., but let's not sort of overemphasize that. It is a real closed shop here in town, in Norwich, of ex-Momentumites and SWP. It's not, the heart of the class struggle of Britain. And these local sort of types can really control things and not be challenged. I've been expelled, but these people just cut you out, bang, 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 and I would just like to make one final point is I've been writing about Kerry Murphy. I write for the Left Lane. I've been writing about Kerry Murphy since last September. I was wondering if you might think, I know we want to make structural changes in the way things happen, but the idea of starting a petition to get rid of Kerry Murphy might be quite popular because if you just read her history, she's the sort of the protector of Corbyn, and he goes ballistic if Kerry's under attack. And I think that there's a lot of antagonism out there online about what's happening at the top race. So I just want to suggest the idea of nailing Kerry Murphy.
Thank you, Alan. I'm sure I can't speak for the white Democratic Socialists of your party, but I'm sure there may be many people in attendance today that support some of the things that you've been pushing forward here. I'm just going to now pass this on to, I can't see your name, but it comes up as Mumbo Development.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you all good.
Great. So I'm not a supporter of DemSoc, but I wanted to come here and see what you had to say. And because what I'm looking at from the outside, it looks very, very factional, very, very destructive behavior. And I think there's talk of like, DemSoc needs to it needs to make constructive criticism. But I think that line has been passed when you're sharing stolen documents that are unfinished and claiming that it represents something. That looks like very strange behavior to me. And if the Tory press are chasing around your speakers asking them for quotes, isn't that an indication that things have gone too far?
We welcome the comment and criticism, and we'll get back to that when we pass it back to our comrades, but we made a note of that one. On my screen now, we've got Ben C next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, all good, thank you.
I think in general, I've heard a comment earlier, some earlier speaker talked about the parliamentary leader and of the party, because every party needs to have a parliamentary leader in parliament. I think there's some regulation or something where they have to have one. And eventually, if we become the opposition, if we have the second most seats in parliament, we'll need a leader of the opposition. And if we win an election, we have a prime minister. I think if we don't start planning for that now, we'll end up eventually in a situation that every sort of socialist party ends up, where it's all about getting one person into being the prime minister, and they'll have all the media attention and they'll be de facto the face of the party and will have all the legitimacy to decide things. You know, a prime minister gets to choose their cabinet. So essentially they get to choose and decide policy. So really, I think when we think about how whoever becomes the parliamentary leader of the party gets chosen, I think that has to be decided by the executive committee. And the parliamentary leader of the party should have no additional powers. They should just be there because there has to be one. And if they become a leader of the opposition and are choosing a shadow cabinet, or if they're prime minister and choosing a cabinet, they shouldn't be allowed to make that choice themselves. It should be decided by the executive committee.
20 seconds.
They should have no extra special powers. In fact, like all that power should be checked by the party, and this is actually quite normal for British politics. If you go back in history, the prime minister was a first among equals, primus inter pares. I think you guys get the idea. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you for that contribution. So as with previously, we're going to pass it over to members of DemSocs for the response to any comments. And I can see Max has his hand up very, very, very high. So Max, go on, take it away.
Right. So I just want to address what Mumbo Development Foundation said. Obviously, we don't know who Mumbo Development Foundation actually is because they're not using their own name and they won't turn their camera on. So, but I think we can all kind of understand that they're probably someone aligned with the people at the top, considering that the language that they use. So I just want to address a couple of things that they've said. The first thing is that we did not steal documents. That is utterly ridiculous. A document was leaked to us and we then published that document in the spirit of transparency, a transparency that those at the top are not willing to give members. So to criticize us for that, quite frankly, is a bit ridiculous. The second thing on journalists chasing us and asking for comment on things, Spectator contacted me, they asked me to comment on something. I said, you can go and do one. I don't talk to the capitalist press, especially when they only want to talk to the left to try and get us to, so that they can smear us. And in the spirit of transparency, I posted the message online that I sent them on response and informed people that they had been in touch. So for us, transparency is key. It's clearly not key for the shadowy figures at the top of your party, the self-selected few. And, you know, you talk about factionalism. Yeah, we are a faction. We're an open, constructive faction. We don't exist behind the scenes. Everyone knows who we are. Our executive committee names are published on the website. Anyone can join us. And we all say publicly that we're members of the Democratic Socialists of your party. On the next point that the comrade raised earlier that I forgot to talk about, I'm a member of the Constitutional Working Committee, working group of DemSocs, and we have a proposal that conference would elect a parliamentary convener on annual terms with a 2-term limit. This person would be the leader in parliament and the primary spokesperson for the party in parliament, but they would have no other powers. They would sit on the executive ex officio, but they wouldn't have a vote or anything like that. So they would then be accountable to that executive between elections. And just one final thing that I completely forgot to mention earlier, that I believe Comrade Chris Stafford brought up around the politics of the organisation. Our programme working group, which I'm also a member of, we're very stretched. Please join so we can add capacity to our organisation. Finished just last night our submission for the initial political statement, the one that we're going to be putting forward. That's going to be subject to amendment and ratification by DemSoc's members first before we publish it. But I think a lot of the things that Chris mentioned will be actually reflected in that document. It's something we've slaved over for many, many weeks.
Thank you, Max. I just want to make a note before I forget, Alan. I know you said you're going to the regional assembly potentially tomorrow. It would be good to chase up this with an email to see if we can coordinate any response to that. But that would be, if that's okay with you, that would be fantastic. I will pass this now to Tina, because Tina has her hand up.
Yeah, in terms of what I don't want to repeat what Max said on the leaks. I think the main thing is that it's usually not, the problem is not those with leaking things, that but it's those with keeping things secret. I mean, we are against the state, having secrets, etc. And we're certainly against our own leadership keeping things secret from us. We've been waiting for weeks for this document anyway, so I think it's more than justified to put out an early draft of that. I was going to mention what Alan was saying in terms of Kerry Murphy. I don't think we should personalize it quite like that. And it's actually Jeremy Corbyn who's put her in charge. So if anything, we should blame him for that. But I don't think we should have a motion or a petition necessarily at this stage against Jeremy either. In terms of the closed shop of branches, and then some branches, I mean, there's lots of divisions, lots of problems, isn't it, arising? There's 3 branches in this area, 2 in there, etc. It's a madness, it's a shambles. But again, that problem doesn't lie with the SWP. It lies with those who haven't given us the data. We could have shared data. Don't have to hand it over, but you could have forwarded details of meetings to everybody who signed up in a particular area. But that was not done on purpose. So the proto branches have various problems, but that's not the problem necessarily of the organized left with it. So I'd be careful about this sort of what I call sectarianism. I'm a Democrat, but I don't want them in there because they're nasty. I think we always have to fight for even the rights of people we don't agree with, and I certainly don't agree with the SWP, but I do think they need to be part of this and be honestly part of it. They will continue to be involved in your party, but they probably do it dishonestly, and we don't want that. I think they should be part of a socialist workers platform, so we know who's talking what nonsense for what reasons. So there are other ways to ensure there's democracy in a branch. For example, STV elections. We should never go for the first past the post, which that favors blocks, etc. But STV elections, proportional representation, if you can do it. But STV is better for branch elections, for example, delegate elections. So let's not throw out the democratic baby with the bathwater just because we don't like the SWP.
Thank you, Tina. Always good to have you keep us grounded in the actual grassroots democratic demands. So this will be now the final round of questions before we do our wrap up, to make sure we've got enough time for responses from comrades as well. So I'll be passing it to Hannah first. I can also see there's a comment from Alan Gibson that we'll respond to as well. So I've just made a note of that. But Hannah, if you want to come first.
Hi, cheers. Honestly, I've read the documents. I'm sorry, I missed the first half of the meeting. There are so many various issues with the document. I don't even know where to start with it all in terms of putting it forward. I think, the situation that we're in now, I mean, I saw that, for example, a regional assembly up in Norwich was, I don't know if this point has been made, do tell me if it has, it was actually sort of wrote a letter. There was sort of putting forward their demands really as their proto branch, to object to how this was being done, and in fact, they did actually cancel the meeting, and the person who was supposed to be chairing that regional assembly has sort of backed out of that to sort of listen to what they have to say. So I don't know, like in terms of sort of raising concerns, I think that would be kind of like one thing to do, and also maybe putting out a statement. And obviously, I'm not actually part of Democratic Socialists. I've just come along to listen and see what is going on. I think just to answer the person's point about sort of the democracy side of things and leaking of documents, I think we need to meet people where they're at. They're the ones who've held the documents away from us. We can't even have any comments. We've had absolutely no say about what is going on, or no influence whatsoever. So I think instead of mudslinging against democratic socialists, we should look at the people who have been sort of concealing this and not allowing us to have any input. I went to the World Transform. There were many different faction, tendencies, as you say, actually working together really collaboratively. The organised left are really willing to work together and put together minimum programmes. You have to ask yourself, why is this not being allowed to be done? We clearly know what we're talking about, but we need to focus on the positives here as well.
Thanks for the kind words, Hannah. It's great to see there's such a groundswell of support at the World Transform for a cross-fractional, cross-tendency rather perspective as well. But thank you. I'll pass it to Anwarul next.
Yeah, sorry, I realised that I didn't introduce myself the last time. I'm a national organiser at Transform, but I've also set up the Your Party Connections network, which is a peer-to-peer site for Your Party proto groups. I just wanted to make a comment really about some of this kind of what feels like a constant battle between certain individuals and personalities, and I always find it really frustrating, partly because I know how difficult it is to actually be part of a party and in the kind of executive position and actually get things done. It's a lot easier to talk about it from the outside than to do it on the inside. I have my differences with Carrie. We've been working on this project for the last couple of years before it got announced. However, the one thing I'm really I should emphasize is that Your Party would not exist without her. I give credit where credit's due. I disagree with her a number of things and have had open disagreements. But on this matter, people should be really, really kind of clear that the ability for us to even have this conversation about a mass party wouldn't exist without the work that she's done. Now, we can disagree with her, and I disagree with a number of things, certainly that's coming through in the document. I agree with a number of things that's been said here. But let's not turn against each other, right? She is a socialist. It just might not be a socialist that has this the view of how to enact a socialist kind of like government that we do. And we should not be tearing into each other on a personal level. Let's focus on policies and structures and criticisms about how we can do socialism better. But I find it really, really distasteful that we attack each other on a personal level, because it's going to come back to all of us afterwards, right? We want to set the culture that we want to see. I'll leave it there, but I just think culture is really important. And if we want to behave like the people that we kind of suggest we dislike, then really we're just saying it's okay, as long as it's not against us. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. For the last question / comment / anything this evening, I'll pass it over to Cece. I hope I've said your name correctly, but
yes, you got it right, I'm Cece. Yeah, so I am also not a member of DemSocs, mostly for capacity reasons. I think I'm very aligned with the group. But I've got sort of a question, a technical question in that vein, which is that obviously with these founding documents being released, DemSocs is going to have their view and amendments on stuff. Proto branches are going to do the same. Other factions are going to do the same. I'm a member of Trans Liberation Group. I know that we're going to do our own review of the Constitution and other documents. So the question is basically, how does DemSocs see / want to organise with other groups, as you know, we will come to our own decisions about what we want to amend or suggest for these founding documents?
Great pertinent question for practical steps forward. So I see Max has his hand up first. I'll pass it back to Max. I've got a couple of things I want to say afterwards as well, but go ahead.
Great. I just wanted to respond to the thing about, people attacking Carrie and so on, right? I firmly believe, as an old friend used to say, politics isn't about personalities, it's about issues. Personally, I've known Carrie Murphy for a very long time. probably going on 12 years now. I like her very much. I consider her a friend. In fact, you know, through casual common parlance, I often refer to her as Auntie Carrie. This isn't about her as a person at all. It's a political disagreement. And I really want to stress that that is very much our position. We're not attacking Carrie as an individual. We're criticising the culture that sadly she has been a part of, creating, one of secrecy, an overwhelming lack of transparency, and a completely unaccountable process for founding what is supposed to be a radically democratic party. On the thing that Cece just said, I don't hold a leadership position in DemSocs. I'm just an ordinary member, but I'm sure from the discussions that we've had privately that I can confidently say that we are willing to work with any and all democratic forces inside the party on the basis of principled unity. We're not into horse trading or anything like that. We want principled unity with others so that we can fight on a principled basis. Just finally to the comments that Hannah made, we've obviously published a constitution that's our vision of the party. It's what we consider to be a minimum programme for maximum democracy. It's our vision of what a truly democratic and genuinely socialist and mass workers' party actually looks like. And obviously we need to do more work on that. We're going to be having a discussion about that at one of our all-member meetings early next week, where it will be subject to amendment and so on. And then our plan is to write an explainer, basically a popular guide to what we're proposing, that can then be disseminated far and wide and popularised by the many against the interests of a self-selected few.
Thank you, Max. And I wanted to respond to the question from Cece about collaboration with other groups as well. I very much echo what Max has been saying, and speaking as an executive member, I can say with some degree of executive authority that there is going to be a concerted effort to make sure that we're working in close tandem, but on the tandem basis that is principled unity, not unity for unity's sake. There's, as current, there is a bit of a, and that we have received criticism from other more long-standing groups that we haven't approached them for coordination. Our initial steps was very much focused on the grassroots organizations that have sprouted up in response to your party's founding, and as such they're very much within that internal struggle for democracy in its different forms within the party itself. We feel like initially it's probably good to have our foot inside your party as strong as possible, but we are not opposed to working with other organizations outside of your party milieu that wish to collaborate with us on a principled basis of fighting for democracy, of fighting for socialism, which means ultimately the liberation of the whole working class, not pitting against the working class against other maligned sections of it, but the whole working class itself. So if you are a member of another organization and you have curiosities and want to get involved with collaborating, please reach out. We're more than welcome to facilitate something. But I'll pass it to Tina for our final response, and then we'll wrap things up after that.
Yeah, just also for the sake of honesty and stuff, I was one of the people who didn't like the world transformed statement at all. I think it fudged a lot of issues. If we have unity, we have to be clear that we want a delegate structure. We can't fudge on that. We have to be clear that we oppose the state. We have to be clear that we oppose imperialism, fully, and not just want to weaken it, etc., etc. But it's good to try those things. And we should maybe look also a bit further at who we're doing this with. I think the democratic blocs, all of their demands have now been met, as far as I can see, by the draft constitution of your party. So I'm not sure if they're even going to continue or not, because obviously I don't think they're a democratic bloc of Mishram, and that is that campaign. I don't think it's democratic to try and have a list of allowed organization that your party members can be members of. That we hand it to the leadership to say, oh, okay, well, show us your books then, SWP, CBGB, whoever, you know, and then we decide if you're democratic enough to join us. Well, it's not very democratic, is it? I think the whole left should be invited to participate in your party openly, democratically, and you know, we should have a real party of the left and the working class. That would be such a massive step forward from what we've had over the decades. I was just going to mention one thing in terms of concrete ways forward, and we are going to work on this, and we are only just seeing the document. So, you know, we've been working our asses off the last couple of days, well, since yesterday, 7 p.m. and before. But we will put forward, you know, maybe 10 or so concrete amendments. I'm thinking that we will then want to also discuss with other groups, because at some stage the online portal presumably will be opening, and presumably there will be some kind of mechanism where 1,000 members, 500 members, if they support a particular amendment, it will go through to conference, because otherwise, as I said, you know, there is currently no mechanism to guarantee any of our amendments go through. There will be a lot of note taking at regional assemblies. What happens with those notes? Nobody knows, nothing much, I suspect. You know, you run it through an AI computer and then what, you know. So we have to have a way to democratically fight for these. So principled unity is absolutely what we need. At the regional assembly, we also, I hope, have a voting guide for some of those options where we can vote. And here's a suggestion that I want to put to comrades who are going to regional assemblies. And, you know, some of them you might be able to say at the end, shall we just go through and have a look which options are particularly popular with everybody here? Do you want to show us, you know, take a note of that, how many people put their hand up? You know, it's not a proper voting, but it's be good to see, you know, what comrades actually think, and then write to us about it, tell us about it, and so we can publicize it. I think that's a really good way to push for democracy and socialism in your party. And in my area, South Yorkshire, somebody made another really good proposal, which I really like, is print out some key sections of the draft constitution, stick it on the wall, hand out little colored dots to everybody who's there, and tell them to indicate which of the options they like best, or which amendments they like, etc. You know, we can put our amendments next to it. And then in the end, we have a very visual representation of what options are popular amongst the regional assembly. Again, we take pictures of that, we put it up online, didn't take a vote, but here is the sort of visual reflection of what members actually thought. So I think there are ways around, you know, we're staying within the rules. We're not totally overthrowing things, but we're certainly trying to push things in a as much democratic way as we can, because we do need this party to work. We really do. I mean, we haven't even talked about, you know, reform, with the climate catastrophe, etc. You know, the world's falling apart. The planet is going to be unlivable soon, you know, and uninhabitable. We need to make this party work, and we need to make it work internationally. The fight for socialism, for communism has to be international. So we have to get a move on. And if this fails, I mean, I don't even want to think about it. This cannot fail. Let's put it like that. We all have to fight as hard as we can to make sure this actually succeeds.
Thank you so much for contributions from Tina there. Right, so I just want to wrap this up now. So many thank yous to everyone who's taken time out of their evenings to attend. I can appreciate it was a fairly lengthy meeting with a lot of heavy content, but everyone's been very polite and contributed in a very comradely manner, and I feel in a very positive manner. From our side, we will be making sure we keep note of all of the things that have been said. So we've got the AI transcript, we've got this recording. We'll make sure that there's a recording put up of everything that's gone on, and we will, it's heavy stuff also, yes, thank you. And we'll make sure we get either a blog post or a report after this done up, so we can do a good summary of everything that's gone on here. I just want to put a massive thank you to all the hard work of the comrades and DemSocs that have helped put this together. If you are interested in our message, in our platform, please come and join up. It would be great to have more people helping out and pitching in to make sure that we can fight for a really socialist democratic party. As you can see from my background, there is dsyp.org. Please go on there, have a look if you like what you see. please get involved. We also do have a chuffed.org link, which is to just chuck a bit of money our way. We are slowly racking up costs, and we would very much appreciate that our comrades are not kept out of pocket. So even if it's just the cost of a pint, please just chuck it up. Well, maybe not if you're in London, but that would be appreciated if you could afford, if you could chuck the price of a pint in London our way. But anything else, please just send us an email, chase up on our website. But otherwise, thank you so much for all attending tonight.